Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. I know it's early Friday morning. Lots of you were probably, how many people were at a Universal last night? Oh, okay. Wow. All right. You guys have already achieved something for today by making a 9:30 in the morning session. I'm Denise Trebona. I'm the design manager for the SharePoint team. You're in the right place if you are here to learn about branding your SharePoint sites. Just curious how many people are already familiar with the branding capabilities in SharePoint. Okay, a good number, kind of half and half. Okay, so we will have a little bit of an overview to orient people along the way, and then I will share some of our best practices and tips and tricks. I'm going to start actually with a demo, which is going to leave me jumping back here behind the podium. You all can see that? Okay, good. So here I have got a conference site for Contoso Electronics. We make drones, in case you guys haven't picked that up during the course of the week. So we have a Fly Safe conference coming up. And you can see here I've got a pretty nice looking site. It's a good layout. Airy, lots of good relevant information, a good mix of web parts here. But it doesn't have a lot of color and it doesn't have a lot of branding. So let me show you how to bring some of that to the page. I'm going to go up here to, actually, let me try to make that a little bit bigger for you, because I know that screen is a little hard to see. Okay, so under settings, I'm going to go to the gear. I'm going to go to change the look. And you can see I've got a variety of options to choose from here. I'm going to go under header. And I'm going to go down here to background, and I'm going to choose a strong background, and bring a lot more color into the header. And I'm also going to change the logo. I'm going to choose this logo right here. And so you can see now I've moved away from that very generic square look for the logo and from that very white header, brought a lot of color. I'm going to save that. Have a little bit of a flash while that sticks. And that looks pretty nice, but I'm also going to bring some color into the page. So I'm going to go into edit mode for page content. And I'm going to go over here to my first section. Over on the left, I can edit the section and use the same color picker to bring color to that top graphic. And then I'm going to move down the page. I think I'm also going to put some color here with technology and innovation. Repeat that pattern. And then maybe one more farther down the page. Save that and republish. And just like that, I've brought a lot more color to the page overall. You'll notice I've worked transparency into a few spots in this page, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. That's a nice way to bring some visual interest into the page. And now I'm going to actually take a look at a couple other options. Going back to change the look, I'm going to play with the theming a little bit. So here under theme, you can see I've got a variety of options to choose from. And I've got several company themes I can take a look at. So we'll just click through a few of those and bring up the page here so you can see a little bit better some of the pop of color. And you can see I've got very bright ones. I've also got a dark theme, which will turn my whole page background dark, kind of the original dark mode, I like to call it, brought to you by SharePoint theming. And then for our purposes, I'm going to land with Contoso Marketing. Got sort of this nice mulberry color from, if you remember that from your Crayolas. And I think that looks good, so I'm just going to save that. And jump out of the page, change the look. And you can see I've got this nice, very colorful, fully branded page. Oh, and I'll point out, we have working here, you might notice at the top, as I scroll up and down, we've got a shy header. So I know a lot of people have talked about how tall the header is on the pages, and we've brought in that really common pattern that you have in mobile, where you see the shy header. As I scroll up and down the page, the header just pops into a shy state. Okay, so with that, let me switch back over to some slides, and we'll talk about some of the details behind this. We'll start with branding and the foundations for branding and customizing your site. For those of you who are unfamiliar, we'll start with a little bit of an overview. So there are 4 core elements to branding in SharePoint. Logos, which you'll see clustered up at the top of the page for identification and wayfinding for your users. Navigation, which will be tied to a lot of the logos in terms of placement. Theming, which is how we brought all that color into the page. And then finally, content structure, which you can think about as your layouts or your site designs or templates. And all of these are brought together by site designs. That's how these are extensible in SharePoint. So you can make sure that you have a way to code in all of these elements via site designs, which I'll touch on a little bit more also later. All 4 of those core elements are designed with these pillars in mind. This is what we think about based on the feedback that you've given us as customers about what's important to you. The first one being professional, to make sure that we do a great job showing enterprise content, but we also do a great job showing your brand, your vertical, your industry. Things are clean and organized looking so your end users can find what they need. On Rails, which you can think about as consistent application of your brand. This is where governance comes into play for admins. How many of you are admins in the audience? Okay. Are there any designers in the audience? Okay. All right. Good to know. Thank you. So efficient and smart, this really goes back to the site designs I was mentioning earlier, which is going to give you power as the admin to really make sure a lot of this can happen just during provisioning, if that's the option you would like. And then also making sure that this is easily applicable across all your modern pages and that you get mobile for free. We do the work to bring you mobile. Also, the last piece is very important to us, accessibility. So we design all of our everything we do is accessible. Theming can really create contrast issues for people. We go out of our way to make sure that all of our themes are compliant from an accessibility standpoint, and we'll also provide guidance and tools for you to make sure yours are as well. Okay, so let's dig deeper into logos and the logo options that you have available to you. So we have up to three tiers of logo display and navigation. The first one being an organization logo up at the top, part of the Office 365 suite header. You can control the logo itself and also the color of the nav bar in the background. How many people are using that piece now, organization logo? Okay. You can put one of these up here now. How many of you are in a situation where you might have multiple companies or subsidiaries and you would need multiple display up there? Okay, probably about a third of you roughly. You want to talk to me at all after this about that? Feel free to come up. I'd love to chat about it. There is one new thing I want to point out, which we'll take a closer look at. Setting these attributes also will now get you branding for your organization in the SharePoint mobile app. Next level down, if you are using a hub, you will have a hub navigation, a hub logo, and that background color up there will come from your hub. And then the third level will be that site logo and navigation. And if you are using a hub, then the hub theme will be inherited into your site header. Or if you're not, then the site header will be just controlled by the site level theming. Okay. So getting into some of the details, I do, as a best practice, recommend using the Office 365 suite header. And it is a great way to really make clear for all of your customers, all of your employees, you're my customers, all of your employees in your organization, just that top level branding piece. One thing that's new in here is support for scalable vector graphic format. And so what that will get you is that your logo will look great at any resolution on any device. As you know, we're moving toward a world of very high resolution devices, and so if you put, just a JPEG or something in there, it can often look very fuzzy or blurry on higher resolution devices. So it's really nice that we've added SVG file support. Also, you can link that logo. Most companies will choose to link that back to their company portal, home site type page, but that's up to you. You can also set that nav bar theme up at the top that I was talking about. It allows you to set the nav bar color and also some additional link colors that will show up in some other places in the UI. If you go to all the trouble to do that, you'll want to flip this switch over here that will prevent the employees from just overriding that and using personalized themes in Office instead. Okay, and so when you do that, you will see your organization's logo appear in a variety of places around Office 365, not just SharePoint, but also places like Planner, Yammer, and a few others as well. So it's a nice way also for your employees to be able to sort of get back to your company portal from a variety of places in Office 365. And as I mentioned a second ago, if you use that element, then you will be able to have your organization's branding display in the SharePoint mobile app, which we were happy to announce this week at Ignite. Okay, so let's talk about the site header. We have the ability for you to use a horizontal logo that's been around for a little while. It supports a variety of formats, JPEGs, GIFs, and transparent PNGs. We don't yet support SVGs here. But you can see that that's a very graphic way to brand the site. This is a more dominant element. It would be great for something that's important in your organization, like your company portal, a brand that's, or a division that's important. That's known within your company and has some sense of a brand presence, like within Microsoft. This would be a great way to display Xbox. One thing you'll note about this is I've still got these words over here that say empowered by innovation. That's my site title. It's a required element. I didn't really have a tagline for my company portal here. I had to make one up. And so we've gotten a lot of customer feedback about not wanting to be forced to make something up to fill in that space. And so we currently are working on the ability to hide the title and just have a graphic brand. And that's a lot of feedback. Yeah, thank you for the applause. Thanks, you guys can clap. And that will really let the brand, it kind of also removes some clutter in my mind. I really like that, really lets the brand stand out a little bit more. The site title is still a required field, and now you don't have to put something a little funny in there. It can just actually say the landing, and then in search results and site lists and other places, it will show up as the landing. So we're in progress on that. That's coming soon. And also an additional support of that more branded horizontal logo capability, we are adding support for a secondary asset, so a tile asset. So if I took the landing and squished it down into a square, it would not look very good. But that square asset is what we use all over M365 for that site. You'll see it in OneDrive, you'll see it in the backstage of Office, you'll see it in SharePoint web parts, and you'll definitely see it in search. And so we are providing support for you to have two assets. One that will display on the site, and one that will then represent your site everywhere else. Okay, logo size and format. So as I mentioned earlier, these are the formats we support. These are the sizes they're used at. So the largest you'll see a square tile used at is 64 by 64, and the wide logo, horizontal logo, 192 by 64. I'll be honest and tell you this is information I think we've been generally slightly remiss at sharing. So we'll make sure we get some documentation posted about this pretty soon. The one thing I would mention too, just as we move into the world of high resolution displays and devices, we will take care of making sure that these show up at the right size for you, but I would recommend actually doubling these dimensions. So you can go ahead and upload a graphic that's 128 by 128. and that's going to look better on high-resolution displays and devices. We will take care of sizing it down as appropriate across the board. Okay, let's jump into theming. So an overview of our theming capabilities out of the box. We have 6 light themes and 2 dark themes. You can mix and match those out of the box to get about 120 different color combinations. But I would recommend for a more branded approach that you really use custom themes. So you can make a custom theme. There's a variety of ways you can get that to your employees. So you can put it in the panel that I just showed and that I used earlier in the demo. You can remove the SharePoint out of the box set if you just want to feature your company's set. Earlier we looked at both in that panel. Or you can make your theme and then include it in a site design and provision it for your employees just when you provision the site. So they don't need to go to the panel. They don't have to make choices. You can just assign it for them. There are also a variety of branding options that can be applied via site designs. There are a ton of things you can include with a site design. I am highlighting some of the branding ones right here. And it includes logos and header layouts and navigation options and footer options in addition to the theme itself. So if you go and make a custom theme, you will want to use the Microsoft UI Fabric Theme Designer. This is a tool I mentioned earlier. You can plug your hexadecimal values in here. We will give you a brief preview of how that looks on some of the UI elements, some of the buttons and controls. And then down here also, it's probably a little hard to see from the back. I apologize, this is an accessibility checker. And so there's a red bar, and it's going to highlight for you anywhere where the contrast is a problem with the colors you've chosen. And then you can go tweak those individual values and retest it, and it will tell you once you've passed color contrast. Okay. This is our current set of site header and footer options. We have a compact header. This is great if you've got a fairly compact site title, fairly compact set of navigational items. You can save a little vertical height. We have a simple footer, which we've had for a little while. New this Ignite, we have the extended footer. We got a lot of customer feedback that people tend to include a lot of links in the footer at the bottom of their page. And so this would be much more suitable for company portal level uses. And then we're also, the background color options that you saw me use throughout the site, we are also bringing those to the footer as well, so people can theme the footer to match the rest of the site. A few do's and don'ts about applying section background colors. So I would recommend using them somewhat sparingly. Probably not for things that are, it's great for breaking up a long page, but don't use it to make an entire page background a color. Use a theme for that. And maybe you want to keep it to one viewport tall just because people tend to lose track if they're scrolling in a long space. But use it to highlight important elements, use it to break up the page, use it to add that visual interest. For people who make custom web parts, if you use Microsoft UI Fabric and you use the theming that's included there, your web parts will adjust color the way I was showing earlier, where the color just changes automatically. The text changes from black to white depending on the background. So your custom web parts can behave the same way as the out-of-the-box ones in terms of just easily accepting theme changes. Okay, having fun with transparency. So I showed a few transparent elements earlier in demo, and that's really setting that background color, taking a transparent graphic, and having that overlay on top. You can get some fun effects. The fly safe effect is the effect we looked at earlier. You can see in the middle, we're having fun with some large letter shapes and photography and popping that off a background. And then at the bottom, it's just nice to make more customized vignetted looking button style scenarios. And so these are just some fun visual effects to play around with, just have a little more sophisticated look for some of your pages. Okay, last tip I want to mention in this section is the organizational assets. So this is basically your brand asset library. If you have a brand team, you have brand assets, corporate communications team, they will love this feature. This is the ability for you to put your official logos, iconography, photography, illustration right out there for employees to use, so people are always using the appropriate and approved correct things. These are also linked, which I would have loved to have had a long time ago when we changed the SharePoint branded icon, because that means you can just update the asset, and then everywhere it's been used, it will update correctly. So really great for things like updating your company logo. Okay, finally, just a few quick updates to share about the default SharePoint look and feel. We're making some updates since we've changed our branded icon. So this is our classic SharePoint blue. We are going to be changing to teal. So this is a question I've, for some reason, gotten asked a lot on Twitter, when this is going to happen. So this is happening soon. We're in the process right now. So soon you'll see sites provisioned with teal instead of classic SharePoint blue. The other thing we're working on is Fluent. So last year at Ignite, we announced the Office products adopting the Microsoft Fluent design language. And SharePoint is also in progress on that. We'll be releasing that soon. This is really a fairly subtle change for most people. You'll notice that, oh, you can probably see Contoso marketing a little bit better in the front screen. It's really tweaks to some of the typography. There'll be bolder typography. The typography will be a little bit smaller because of that. You'll see rounded corners on things and some changes to alignment. So we think it looks crisp and clean and a little bit updated, but for most people will be a fairly subtle change. Okay, so that's all I've got for today. This is the roadmap. I've just highlighted in red the branding pieces I just talked about. Those are, some of those are rolling out now. The rest of those are available early next year. And I'll just wait until people stop taking pictures. We're going to close with some resources. Okay, we're going to close with some additional resources. So Jeff announced at the beginning of the week we have an updated lookbook. You're free to come up here and get one. I have tons. I don't want to carry them home. Please come get one. We also, on the SharePoint design guidance site, we've updated our toolkits for your designers to work with. We have a Figma toolkit. I strongly recommend going back and watching breakout session 4004. Melissa Torres went through a great bit of detail about site designs and also your overall IA in SharePoint and the use of hubs. And then finally, we're going to start a blog series with some tips and tricks around design, branding, theming, et cetera, as we've gotten a lot of feedback about people wanting more of this information. Thank you very much for coming. I would love to get your feedback. Please fill out an evaluation. I will be available up front for any questions. Thank you.